The Dick and Carey model is a systematic, linear, instructional systems design model developed in Florida for the purpose of creating a foundation to e-learning courses or unit designs. In my explanation, I will include an assignment for demonstration of the stages of a high school class creating and publishing an autobiographical e-learning book. Stage 1 is the instructional goal. When establishing the initial instructional goal, since I have never published an e-book, I would first consult with an expert in that field by seeking someone out in the curriculum department who has had experience in creating and publishing curriculum. That expert could guide me in how to design the format of the book, specify which tools would be best utilized by my students, and give an idea of a reasonable goal expectation possible. The Dick and Carey model requires that completed goal statement should include the learner capability, the performance of context, and the tools. Therefore, a good instructional goal for this project would sound something like, my high school students in English will collaboratively create and develop an online ebook of their individual personalities by demonstrating their acquired skill level of e-learning technology. Stage 2, Instructional Analysis. Where you identify the gap between the desired status of competency and the actual status of competency when producing the ebook by first identifying what domains the goal is linked to. Then determine the step and skills used for each task, the required mental operations for the information and processing, and the objectives that involved intellectual skills. In the case of e-publishing assignment, the domain is primarily cognitive within Bloom's taxonomy. The students may not have as much technical skill of the software applications as they do of their own perceived capabilities of using the software, or of the concepts which will eventually be developed. The best way to determine if they have any prior knowledge of the software is to informally test them with regard to the software functions and commands. This will indicate the amount of gap to be addressed when covering the software. It may indicate the software is easy and user-friendly, or it may indicate that the instructor will need to spend a specific amount of time discussing and developing materials to learn the software functions. Stage 3, Learner Characteristics. The Dick and Carey model states that the instructor should know the learning audience and their motivation to enroll in your class, their intellectual and personality traits, their skill level, their prior knowledge of the topic, their learning preferences, and their ability to work in groups. With this specific scenario, the learners are high school students who are required to take English. Outside of that, the instructor should implement an activity or an assignment requiring the students to tell some background of themselves. Initial class discussions should provoke responses which describe and indicate the student's prior experience with technology. Also, observations should be taken out to note how well students interact with each other. Do they withdraw, leave the class, gather in a clique, etc. Stage 4, Performance Objectives. According to the Dick and Carey model, the performance objectives indicate what the student will be capable of doing by the end of the class or the unit. It is comprised of 3 parts: the condition, or the tool or resource needed to achieve the skill, the behavior or actions content created to demonstrate mastery of the skill, the criteria or performance delivery of the skill. Within the context of the given scenario, the condition or the tool resource would be the software utilized to create the product. The behavior or content would be each individual student's contribution to the overall novel. The criteria of performance delivery would be the quality of the delivery per student, whether they included complete information asked, whether they were able to master the functional task of the software requirement. Stage 5. Assessment instruments. The Dick and Carey model would request that a designer choose the most ideal assessment for the instructional unit, whether it be a multiple choice, an interactive technology, performance-based assessment, or final product. The model also requires the criteria to be created by a rubric or correct answer protocol. The learning environment, the assignment context, and the answer response time are all variables to be considered when assessing a learning objective. In my English class collaborative project, a rubric for individual input would be most appropriate. Each individual student contribution to his page would be assessed on the quality of input, the quality of presentation, the quality of collaborational effort when working with others. Stage 6. Instructional strategy. Choosing the best learning theory for achieving your instructional objective is foremost in instructional design because it will coincide with the design model that you create and ultimately underscore your instructional objective. A designer will need to consider the goal of the unit, the learner motivation and characteristics, the learner objectives and tasks, assessment choices, and material context. In a collaborative work project, I would argue that the connectedness approach will be the most relevant. There is a constructivist nuance to this project because the students will be building their technical capabilities within the zone of proximate development. However, they will be working collaboratively and involving each other to technically create an internet-based project which can influence other classrooms around the world. Also, students may research other online classrooms to see objects or projects already created to enhance their own personal efforts of their own project. Stage 7. Developing and selecting instructional materials. According to the DNC model, students will need to be exposed to an array of e-learning activities and aids to compile and create engaging products which demonstrate their learning. Therefore, the instructor will need to consider the availability of materials already in existence, the development of new materials, and the implementation of the present delivery system. The instructional developer will also need to consider the appropriateness of material usage when planning for future learning sessions to larger audiences. In the context of the English class, the instructor would need to have a template or outline of expected task or questions to be addressed for the initial content of an individual student's page. The instructor would also need to gather visual examples of acceptable presentations from prior students. The instructor would also need to ensure that students have a working knowledge of the software functions and may need to include a list or a sheet illustrating key functions or lessons on teaching these base functions and intermittent assistance with strategies, particularly if the instructor is not available to provide assistance. Stage 8. Formative evaluation. Ongoing instructional evaluation of tools and processes which could be improved to further educate of said concepts to larger audience. Formative evaluations gather information through formal and informal processes using feedback, interviews, observations, quizzes, discussions, error analysis, etc. Within the context of the high school ebook assignment, formative evaluation can occur at any time. I believe it would be particularly evident with the student's demonstration of effectively being able to implement the ebook software technology independently. Teacher observation could also analyze on whether grouping of students who would improve overall performance, interaction, and overall results. Adjustments could be made along the way as the project is progressing, and those improvements can be implemented in future instruction in the same concept. Stage 9. Summative Evaluation. The summative evaluation of the D&C model describes the effectiveness of the instructional unit as a whole once the unit is complete. This can be achieved by feedback from participants or post-assessments, which cover the entirety of the information addressed. Using the high school English ebook example, the final product would primarily indicate successful execution or not of the required processes to create and produce published compilation. It would also be most useful to have students give written feedback on areas of difficulty, successes, before refining the lesson for another session. Finally, I know this overview to 2-minute time constraint. However, I did not feel I could leave anything out to fully address the requirements. My overall impression of the Dick and Carey model is that, although the goal of the lesson is ultimate, no doubt, there is an abundance of emphasis on front-loading the objectives in steps 1 through 3. With the actual practice of the given skills only being specifically addressed in step 4. Personally, whether I'm right or wrong, I prefer to focus on the practical application of the immediate task and mastery of those tasks, as that is where the student learner frustration occurs and the instructor direction is most needed. However, I do like the formative and summative evaluations of the Dick and Carey model, as I feel they could be invaluable to creating a seamless experience for future learners.